Hey, I'm Rusty.
And I'm Heather.
And we're the Bryants, and this is the Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
We are here to encourage healthy marriages, strengthen wounded marriages, and begin the process of restoration to broken marriages.
We aren't licensed counselors, but we are a redeemed couple that loves the Lord and wants to help you journey through this messy, challenging, and fun part of life called marriage. Welcome back to another episode of the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. This is Rusty and Heather Bryant. We are excited to be back with you for another episode. Here we are early in the year of 2022, and we'll be kind of building on what we started last week when we started talking about healthy habits for your marriage. So, but before we get started with that, wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping, a little bit just to tell you, because we've got all kinds of things that have been going on recently. But the main thing is that we put out a survey yesterday. Go ahead. Tell them about our survey.
Yeah, so we just sent the link out on social media. It's called the Redeemed Marriage Survey. And it's just giving us some ideas of what you guys are interested in hearing. You know, we kind of went through our story, went through some bigger marriage topics in season 1, then went through our story, and just trying to decide what you guys want to hear. But one of the questions on there is really near and dear to my heart because it asks what topics you would like for us to discuss in our book. And I am super excited about continuing to work on that and making sure it's exactly what our listeners want to hear. So it's just it's like 11 questions, I think, and one of them's like your name. So it's not hard.
One of them's your name and one of them's your email address because it's a contest.
Yes, it's a contest.
So we're going to give
a prize.
Yeah, we're going to do a drawing. We're going to give away a free marriage resource. We're actually going to choose one of our favorite marriage books because we are sort of on that topic.
That's right.
Of doing things to grow your marriage in 2022, and that's one of the things we talked about last week. So, and one of the questions is kind of a little bit funny at the end too.
It is.
It
is. And you were like, "Is this okay?" And I said, "Sure, it's fine." But it's encouraging. Do we want to tell them what that question is?
No, don't tell them. Don't tell them. So now they'll all be like, "Oh, we got to get in there."
Question? And then they're gonna get to it, and be like,
"Yeah, that was dumb." No, it's fine. But I'm excited to see. We put it out last night, pretty late on social media, and we got quite a few responses already. And I think it's just going to be really helpful because you mentioned being able to give some insight into podcast or episode topics, but also the book, and also there's just some other resources that we're sort of just tossing around, things that we would like to do in the future, and we're just trying to see if there's some interest in those things. So that would be a massive help to us if you could do that. So let's jump right in though for this week. And last week we started talking about healthy habits, the things that you can do in 2022 to grow in your marriage and to have a healthier marriage. And, it's funny because one of the questions, and I'm not going to tell what all the questions were, but one of the questions were, like you said, was about the book and what people want to hear or read about in the book. And one of the things that we said was just, would you like to hear general marriage topics like things to have a healthy marriage? And almost everybody has put that so far as one of their. So I think that this is a good place for us to start in 2022. And just to catch you up to speed, last week we talked about how for one of the simpler ways, I guess you could say, to have New Year's goals or resolutions or whatever you want to call them is to look in Scripture and see how Jesus grew. And so taking how Jesus grew and then applying it to our marriages. So we pulled the verse, Luke 2:52, that says Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. And so last week we talked about growing in wisdom in your marriage. We gave some really, really practical some suggestions on listening to podcasts and listening to sermons, and then also reading, which I know reading is not everybody's favorite thing to do.
Sure.
But we gave some suggestions even through social media this week and told some books that people could start reading. We even had a chance, because some people specifically asked us on social media for some books that would help with specific things in their marriage. And so, so like we said last week, we've done a lot of the work for you guys. So come and ask us, and we'll be glad to help. And then the third thing last week was going and doing something for your marriage, and that could be a retreat or an intensive or even just a date if that's all you can do, and just a way to grow. So we're taking it in order, and we talked about growing in wisdom last week. This week we're going to talk about growing in stature.
Which is not your height.
No, because I am really in bad shape if that was it. I think I get smaller.
No.
I'm definitely getting smaller. I am small. I am small in stature, but I have a huge heart.
Yes, you do. You're not small in stature. You're the average height.
That's a stretch. Anyways.
I tried.
But physical growing physically. And, I think that probably if you did a survey of all the people in the world that do resolutions, I bet that's the top of their list.
Absolutely.
Something physical.
Exercise, eating right, losing weight.
Yep.
Yeah, something like that.
So, but I think what we want to do today, because it would be, you just said, exercise, eating right, and rest. Like those three things.
I didn't say rest.
I know you didn't. I just added it because that's a big one.
It is.
So, we could just shut it down and that would be the end of the...
Yeah.
But we're not going to do that
because it wouldn't be number one on everybody's list if people knew how to do it. Because it continues to be number one on everybody's list.
Right. But it would be easy for us to just say those three things and then talk about them. But we don't want to do that because we're going to talk about how your physical growth can impact and should impact your marriage.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, there's some tough parts to this topic because it's sensitive in a lot of areas to some people. And, so we're just going to jump in and just kind of give some insights as to how you can grow in your marriage as you think about physical growth and how to improve your health and your stature. You laugh at that. Why you laugh at that word? That's
two reasons. Stature.
You think about a little man. That guy's got little man syndrome. Little stature.
Well, and then, it doesn't help that our oldest corrects me all the time about saying height. That's not even a word. It's height.
Well,
and so he'd
he
be
goes
proud.
to one of those smart schools.
I know, but he'd be proud. Twice I've said it correctly on this podcast. Let's see if I can not mess it up. When you said that we were doing this, I'm going to be honest, I got a little nervous because this is not my favorite topic because it's hard for me. It's one of those areas that, and I think everybody has strengths and weaknesses in the marriage. I think that God created that on purpose because I feel like you're strong in areas that I'm not strong in. And I maybe am strong in some areas that you're not strong in. And this is definitely
Name one. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
So rude.
Totally kidding.
Anyway, but I think that this is an area that you are really, really strong in. And so I wasn't looking forward to it. And I've just been praying as I prepared my heart for this podcast that I would be able to share some of the hard parts, but then also make sure that people, because I think a lot of times people can listen to a podcast and think they've got it all together. And we don't. We obviously do not. And this topic is just like any other. It's a struggle for us as well, specifically for me. But our marriage is stronger because you come along beside me in this journey. And so I don't want somebody to hear it and go, yeah, I'm no good at that area and my husband is, or maybe the husband's no good at it and the wife is, but just to feel encouragement that it's a way for your marriage to grow stronger as you do these things together.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to say from the very beginning, this is not a podcast on losing weight.
No, heavens
or
no.
an episode on losing weight.
Heavens
because and the other thing that I want to acknowledge is, obviously there's lots of people out there that are listening to this that are healthy.
Sure.
So they're healthy and they're going, what am I going to get out of this? Well, we're going to talk to you about how to be healthy physically together in your marriage.
Right.
But also, we also want to acknowledge the fact that there's a lot of people out there, and you would fall into this category because there are things and circumstances that have happened along the way that really are a hindrance to you being able to be at the peak of what you want to be health-wise.
Right.
Obviously, people know that you battled breast cancer 5 years ago, and, you have been through chemo, and you've had the hysterectomy, and, everything. There are physical limitations.
Sure.
And physical boundary.
And
things.
then you have genetics. Some
Absolutely.
people have... I've inherited high blood pressure, and people deal with cholesterol, and there's lots of things that you have to say, okay, it's not just me.
Right, right.
Like, this is not all my fault.
Yeah, for sure. And so this is not guilt. This is not shame. This is how can we work through this together.
That's right.
So, hey, you made fun of me last week for making 3 points. I made 3 points again for this week.
Of course you did.
Which today we were...
Yeah,
the sermon today had 4 points,
yes.
But he didn't go to the same seminary I went to.
But he was good.
It was really good.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah. So here are the 3 points that we want to bring home to you today. The first one is when you're thinking about growing physically, not growing taller, but just your overall health.
Sure.
And I think that it's safe to say, just like I said, eating right, exercise, and getting enough rest. Those are the three big things.
Sure.
So when we're talking about growing health-wise, those are the things that we're sort of in the background talking about. So the first thing, and this is, again, for your marriage, is do it for yourself.
Yep.
And I said at the same time, I said, this is for your marriage, and then I said, do it for yourself.
Well, because how many times have we talked about you can only control yourself?
That's
you
right.
can only change yourself. You can't change your spouse.
Yeah, well, a big part of marriage is self-care.
That's right.
And we learned that in a massive way when we went to our marriage intensive. Mm-hmm. And I remember at our marriage intensive, one of the first things, they looked at me in the eyes, those two counselors, and they said, this week you need to focus on yourself. And it blew me away because I was like, wait a second, we're here for a marriage intensive. And so, we're talking about being healthy but in your marriage, but we're giving you permission, do this for yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Because you're the best version of yourself when you feel good and when you're healthy and when you feel good about yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you want to become the best version of yourself, we want you to become the best version of yourself. Your spouse wants you to be the best version of yourself. And all of the things that go into a marriage are better when you're the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
So a couple of things that I really was thinking about when I thought about this is doing it for yourself. I do exercise every day. I go and I literally run 3 miles every single day. And a big part of that is because I have a dog that won't let me not go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even when you don't feel great or it's raining or it's snowing, he doesn't get all that.
Right. He doesn't understand. But at the same time, I have learned, because it's not like I've done this for the last 6 months or the last year. I mean, this is decades, literally decades. I've done this. And I know that I have to do that for myself for a lot of reasons. One is I do, the whole the science part of it and all the stuff that your body, I'm not a scientist, but all the stuff that happens in your body when you exercise, it makes you a better person for the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. And so I know that if I do that, then I'm going to have a better opportunity to serve you in our marriage, serve my family, because I just feel better physically. Right. If I'm always feeling bad about myself or down about myself, or I don't have those things scientifically that are going on inside of me. Dopamine, there you go. Those things.
Dopamine?
I don't know.
That and into something.
You read all the science part of it. I just go out and do it. But I do believe that it's so important in order to be who you want to be and to feel good. And it's not just even the physical part of it, which this is physical too, but like just the clearing of your mind to exercise. And even that goes with eating right, because all of that stuff happens when you eat right too. And rest. Most people don't do a good job of getting enough rest. But those things, if you do those things for yourself, you're making yourself healthy, which means you're not going to get sick as often. And the more you're sick, everybody, when you don't feel good, I'm not saying you. Yeah. I'm just saying when somebody doesn't feel good, they're not a good spouse. Like, it's hard to be a good spouse when you don't feel good. So yeah.
Yeah.
What you got?
Well, yeah, doing it for yourself. And, one thing I think about that I can say for a women's perspective, when I don't feel good about how I look physically, it affects things in the bedroom as well. Because my confidence is not there. I don't feel like I look good on the outside, so therefore, I feel guilty for not taking care of myself as much as I should. Like, it's just kind of a cycle of feeling good on the inside, outside, beating yourself up about it, and it's just this cycle that goes over and over. And so it's important for you to do it for yourself, as well as the next one that we're going to talk about, which is doing it for your spouse. Yep. And I think my example that I was using right then about how if I don't take care of myself and I feel like my confidence is gone, I don't really want you to look at me, that type thing, that is doing it for myself, and then also doing it for your spouse. When I take care of myself, when I'm eating right, when I'm getting enough rest, when I'm exercising, when I'm doing all those things that you're saying that we should do, then I am showing you that I care about you. I'm showing you that I care what I look like and I feel like, so that I can be a better spouse to you and a better wife. And so I think that our focus has to be on doing it for ourselves, and honoring ourselves and becoming the godly wife or husband that God wants us to be. But I also think there's an aspect of it where we have to be able to look at our spouse and say, you know what, you mean so much to me that I'm going to continue to take care of myself, because I want to be here for a long time. Yeah. I want to grow old with you.
That's right. Just the health aspect of it.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Because you're just saying to your spouse, I value us being together. Sure. And I know that in order to be together for a long time and to have quality of life, then I need to be healthy.
That's right.
And I think, like you said, too, there is something to be said. Again, look, nobody is expecting anybody to look the same way they looked on their wedding day. Absolutely. That's unrealistic. But there is the element of, people get married because there's a physical attraction. Sure. So if you just kind of through the years, and again, I am not there's no shame because everybody I mean, children and I mean, all kinds of stuff happen.
That's right.
Along the way. But when you just kind of like, I just don't care and just let yourself, then that's a message to your spouse. But when you're trying and you're working at it, that's the other message to your spouse that says, hey, you mean something. And this is hard for me. And like, I do think that the majority of spouses, they understand the behind the scenes stuff, that there's some things that you can't help. But at the same time, I mean, there's a ton of grace, but there's more grace when you look over and you go, wow, I mean, thank you for trying.
Sure. That's right.
So,
when you see effort.
Yeah.
When you see that, gosh, they, I love that they're trying. I mean, they may not be reaching all the goals and all the things they have set up for themselves, but I can tell that they are trying. And, physical appearance is a big part of marriage. When I went through breast cancer and my double mastectomy, that was hard for me. Just because physically I wanted you to be attracted to me. And I love that you said that about nobody expects you to be who you were when you got married, but I sure wouldn't mind you thinking your 46-year-old wife was hot.
Yeah.
I mean, like I want to be as pretty and as in shape or taking care of myself as much as a 46-year-old woman can.
As much as you
after
can
two babies
be.
and after a double mastectomy and after a complete hysterectomy and after all of that.
Right.
I still want to be the best version of me that I can be for myself, but also for you to show you that I care.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. And I think you touched on this a little bit when you just talked a little bit about physical intimacy. And, again, you don't have to look as good or better than you did on your wedding night. But if you're trying and you're working at it, it gives you confidence,
Sure.
I mean, for both spouses,
Sure.
like just to know, I'm out there doing this for you and your spouse appreciates that.
That's right.
And I believe that it makes them more attractive
Sure.
as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Now the fun part.
Last one is to do it together. Okay. So we said, do it for yourself, do it for your spouse, and do it together. And one element of that could be that you actually exercise together,
Sure.
or you diet together, or rest together, whatever it is. You do those things together. That is definitely one element. And I know that, even when we were going through the worst part of our marriage 10 years ago, and a lot of you had just confessed to me, we spent a lot of time going on walks and it wasn't real exercise, but it was just like we were doing physical activity together. And I remember, as crazy as it sounds, we spent so much time just bonding through that I was extremely attracted to you while we were going through the worst days of our marriage. And it was because we were spending time together. Like we were talking and even today, these days, when we go out and go for a walk together, like
It's not for exercise.
Yeah, it's not really for exercise because we do those things kind of on our own, but those are the times that we really can kind of get to the communication part of it and just be really intimate in that way. So, there's definitely an element of actually doing exercise together. And hey, if it's your thing as a couple to go and exercise together, awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I wanted to say, and this kind of bleeds into the next part we were going to discuss, but we exercise. You and I choose to exercise separately because we like different things.
That's
if
right.
I was a runner, then we would run together.
Right.
But I don't love to run. And so we don't do that together. So when we do go exercise together, it's just to be together, like go for a stroll. It's like, are we going for a stroll or a real walk?
Right.
Just a stroll, or hiking, or something like that, where you're just doing it together. But where it bleeds into the other category is you can also exercise together if you need to go with your spouse to encourage them to exercise. Like if you have a spouse that's like, I really don't like to exercise, I don't know what to do, you can go with them to encourage them to exercise.
Yep.
And that's our second point, is that you're supposed to grow. How you can grow in stature together, and doing it together is to support and encourage each other through that.
Yeah, and I mean, just to be able to support your spouse as their because it takes time. I mean, obviously, for me to do what I do every morning, it's about an hour, almost exactly an hour out of my day, because I drive somewhere to some trails and I run, and then by the time I get home,
all these people are thinking it takes him an hour to run 3 miles.
No, it does not take me an hour to run. It's about 15 minutes away. But you never, like, I don't know that I've ever heard you say, "Oh, you're going again."
Right.
Like, really? I mean, you just always, you're always supportive of that. And I think that that's a big part of growing together this way in your marriage, is that we're supporting each other.
Right.
Now, there can be some unhealthiness to it as well. And, people definitely get to a point where they can spend too much time at the gym, too much time away from home. And that's where it's really important to communicate about that and be honest, if there's something uncomfortable, because look, let's just throw it out there and be honest. You had to quit the gym 10 years ago.
I need to quit the gym.
That's a Friends episode. But I, because of some things that were happening, and because you had gotten to where you were just spending way too much time, that, we just knew for our marriage that that wasn't going to be what you were going to do for your exercise for the rest of your life.
That's right.
And so again, but that's just communicating and knowing that's important. That's important for me. And you're good with that, because you know too. Those are places that you need to stay away from.
Sure. Well, and in the support and encourage each other, I think it's real easy for us to talk about leaving and going and exercising for an hour each because our children are grown.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. This is where you have to communicate and support and encourage each other. If you need your spouse to watch the kids while you go and exercise, you don't say, I'll be at the gym, I'll be back in 3 hours.
Right.
But if you're saying, hey, this hour, if you could give me 1 hour where you keep the kids, during bath time, whatever, like do something to, say to your spouse, I need you to do this for me. And as the spouse that is asked, be willing to do that. Be willing to say, yeah, let me cover bath time and story time while you go and exercise. Because if you have a wife, especially, this is more a tendency for the wife to be able to say, I don't have time to exercise. From the time the kids get up, or maybe the spouse says, I'll do the morning routine while you go and try to get whatever. But you have to communicate with your spouse and be supportive in that way, of not just saying, yeah, go, but what can I do to help you achieve your goal? Is it, helping you to be part of a gym? Encouraging you to go to a class, finding people that you can work out with, or whatever. There's a million circumstances that could change what I'm saying, but just making sure that you are supportive and encouraging to your spouse in that way. And that takes communication to be able to say, I need your help.
No, those are great points. And I think that it's important to be able to get to a healthy place where you can communicate together, even on the hard topics, and I'm not saying that anybody at any point should say, get your lazy butt up off the couch and go exercise. But, there is a healthiness to being able to say, hey, what can I do to help you? Because I want you to be healthy. And if you see that your spouse is struggling and having a hard time, communicate honestly and be able to support. Look, just to throw this out as well, I have begged you to run forever because I love it.
Right.
And you can't. I
can't like it.
You don't like it, but there's also, because of some of the health issues that you've been through, it just doesn't work
That's
for
right.
you
That's right.
on a physical level.
Right.
And so, we had to make some changes and do some things and purchase some equipment for the house. And,
Yep.
So we have some things that you're able to do. And while I may look at that and go, that doesn't make any sense to me because
right.
that's not me, but I have to be supportive of you, and we both have to compromise in some areas.
That's right. That's right.
So, it's just learning to have those conversations and supportive conversations, but communicate well.
And doing that, I'm sorry, I'm sure you were fixing to say something else important, but you know how you said sleep, exercise, and eating right. And there's a lot of people out there that don't do an eating plan because their spouse is, or eating healthy because their spouse isn't on board.
That's
because, they say, I don't want to eat that,
Yep.
And so just be willing to do whatever it is that your spouse needs. Do it with them.
Yeah, try things.
That's
If one spouse needs to eat better, sit down on Sundays and come up with the meal plan for the week and do that together and think of things that you both enjoy and your kids would enjoy. And, I just, again, it's being a team. And that's what marriage is being a team. So
That's right.
I love that you said that about the kids, because our kids are older. We still have one in high school, and one in college. But on the survey that's been coming through, there's been a lot of people that have said that they want a topic to be, how do you handle marriage when you have small children?
That's right. Ooh, and get the kids involved with the
Yes,
exercise.
Yes.
Our kids love to go for runs.
Yep.
I mean, they still do.
How many times did I push that running stroller
Oh
with
my gosh.
one hand and the dog on the leash, big
Yep.
dog,
That's
Lab, on the other
Uh-huh.
with the other hand, and we were all together though, and it was great.
And
So
the one time that I tried it and the baby flipped out.
you flipped.
It was
you flipped
Logan.
Yep. That's what's wrong with him.
Flip the stroller. See, running hasn't been good for me for a really long time.
There's some bad memories there. Hey, I hope that this week that you'll kind of evaluate where you and your spouse are together physically, and that you'll do the things this week that will help you to grow physically so that your marriage can improve, that you can be each other's biggest supporters and biggest teammates. And we'll look forward to being back with you next week as we take week number 3, part 3 in the healthy habits and the things that you can do for a healthy marriage in 2022. We will see you next week.